Hey, and welcome back. It's video 5 in our series Congruent Vibrations. Originally, I hadn't planned on doing a 5th video, but I wanted to emphasize a few things because during this process of creating these videos, I learned so much. Sharing this information that I've been practicing in my own life has helped me to memorize it and integrate it even more. The three things are determining factors in success. They are the foundation. Without them, nothing I've said to you so far will take root. You'll need these three things that I want to emphasize in this video to be able to build a strong foundation. You'll use the tools I've mentioned around thoughts, words, and actions to do all of this building. Alright, so the three pieces of the foundation are 1. Belief in the possibility of your desired outcome. 2. Perseverance, the ability to push through and never give up. And 3, to address and include your subconscious mind. I've mentioned all these things already, but I want to bring further emphasis to why these things are so important, just so that you don't accidentally leave them out. We want to include these things in the journey. So real quick before we get into it, when I first posted about these videos, I mentioned how these tools helped me overcome anxiety and depression. However, I just want to be completely clear that there was a lot that went into it. It wasn't like 5 weeks of being exposed to this information that I was able to completely heal. But having an understanding around these concepts really tied everything together for me. And it really helped me to actually practice what I was learning. So these tools were things that I already knew, just like you already know them, but I wasn't practicing them. So learning and practicing are two different things. Maintaining an empowering state of mind is a practice. Also, real quick, I had a question about the higher self. That's just another way of talking about identity. It's a way of identifying with something different than what you're identifying with now. Particularly for our discussion, identifying with a higher vibing way of being and thinking. And this is a subconscious identification that takes time. I also highly encourage you to research into further anything I'm talking about in this video. So, getting into it. Number 1, belief. The most fortifying element in the foundation is belief, because we're only able to up-level if we believe up-leveling is possible. The biggest shift for me happened when I was brought to the understanding that anything is possible. At one point, I was under the assumption that it was impossible for me to get rid of anxiety completely. But once I was instilled with the belief that it was not only possible, but also my birthright to be joyful, that's when I really started to see a big shift. When doubt is at play, you're not actually able to shift into possibility. And the belief that something is possible is the number one thing needed when moving into new, uncharted territories of growth that we've never experienced before. So I would encourage you to ask yourself daily, what do I believe is possible? And make it a specific question. Ask yourself, do I believe wholeheartedly that this, fill in the blank, is a possibility for me? Part of the foundation to growth is being able to release and let go of any doubt and fear, especially from inside of the subconscious mind. Fear we may not even know is holding us back will play out in our life for as long as we let it. We must address the fears in order to make space for the possibilities and the belief. The strongest belief is fearless faith, not fearful faith. Sometimes this means seeking out professional help, which is widely available in many different forms and price points, sometimes even free with insurance. When seeking out therapy or coaching, we should be proud of ourselves. There is no shame in getting help. It's a sign of self-respect, and also a way to respect those in our lives. By working through big challenges, or even tiny little challenges that most people think they don't need support for, amazingly, therapy is good for that too. Either way, when we take the time to work through these things, we are able to move forward. Being limitless means coming face to face with our limits and pushing past them. It's only right to have a little extra added support when doing something like that. That's why I'm a huge advocate of taking advantage of the mental health options available and not trying to navigate life all by yourself. I've also made a list of YouTubers to listen to in the description who have been super helpful on my journey. I definitely recommend checking them out. So, number 2, another piece of the foundation is endurance, resilience, the I don't give up, I simply get up attitude. faithfulness, persistence, and commitment. When I've been mentioning commitment, I've really been meaning it. Without a commitment to yourself, your likelihood of giving up increases. We must be wholeheartedly committed to the version of ourselves we truly want to be, because the only way to get there is to push through and never give up. It requires a lot of strength to push through, and strength is a practice, a committed practice that requires a lot of grace and compassion. Part of the endurance is being in it for the long game, while at the same time knowing we're bound to backslide sometimes, and that's totally okay. It's totally normal to do that. Just because it's not easy doesn't mean you should give up. This is about self-control, control of the mind through awareness, control of the body to overcome patterns of reaction in the mind. Take fear off the throne and put yourself back on there as the true ruler of your mind and body. Take 100% responsibility for your mental health. 100% responsibility. Self-control is not always easy, but it's so necessary. And I know it can actually be quite a lot of work to be more aware and conscious all the time. And therefore, it can also be very tiring and taxing. So part of having congruent actions is taking time to rest. Please make sure you give yourself the gift of adequate rest and integrate rest into your habits and your practice. Speaking of rest, how does all of this hard effort, self-control, and work fit into the ease that I've been talking so much about? Well, when I say true growth happens easily and naturally when we stop doing the things that dim our light and pull us down, that we naturally rise up to our truest potential, I don't mean that it won't be a challenge. Natural beauty may bud easy enough, but breaking down the limiting beliefs and fear patterns is a whole nother story. I like to encourage an easy pathway because everyone's journey is unique, and why would I want to impose the fear of hardship if that's not something you deal with? Maybe my saying it will cause you to look for hardship or take a more challenging path than what was necessary. So take all of this with a grain of salt and ask yourself what's right for you personally. I know ease and flow is certainly the best way to go about transformation, but life is life, and sometimes it takes some grit and pushing through very painful stuff in order to keep our commitment to ourselves and not give up. And while I've noticed it does get easier and easier the more and more we practice, there are still times I get tired or caught off guard, and I slip back into the familiar thought patterns of negativity or anger. And those were the times when I'd make it worse by beating myself up, not having any compassion, grace, or forgiveness for myself. That I'd become very forceful and resistant. I resisted the feelings that needed to be processed in a healthy way, and tried my darndest to force myself to be different and to be better or to change overnight. That's the opposite of natural. That is not what I'm talking about. It's the opposite of what I'm talking about. What I mean by naturally letting yourself rise out of fear is just not forcing it. Giving yourself some sliding room and some extra compassion, some extra commitment. Naturally allowing it to happen just means not holding yourself to a standard that's too high for you to attain in every moment. It's good to hold yourself to a higher standard, but never beat yourself up when you fall short. We just have to reinterpret the situation as part of the learning process that will eventually lead to our end goal. We don't want to lose sight of the higher self by giving up and getting caught up in temporary failures. So how will you define failure? How can you redefine it as a strengthening exercise? Or can you redefine it as somehow in contribution to who you are on the way to becoming? All along being content with who you are right now, regardless. So seriously, believe in the possibility beyond all else, and it will become easier to have resilience. And no, resilience for you does not have to look like the resilience the media portrays. Maybe your resilience is simply giving yourself a tissue when you're crying. You must recognize yourself for the small ways you're taking care of yourself before you can start with the big ways. Now, number 3 is to address and include the subconscious mind in our practice. Naturally, the subconscious mind is going to pick up on all this stuff anyways, but why not give it some extra help? Now, there's no way that I can go into all the details of the subconscious mind here. Just do some research, but basically it governs everything. Literally everything we do, say, and accept as reality, Google it. 95 to 99% of our life experience is governed by the programming within the subconscious mind. The reason I think it's so important to mention this is because while having awareness around my thoughts, words, and action was what helped me to practice and bring in that congruence in my life and practice that empowering state of mind, the actual change was happening within my subconscious. And furthermore, I've seen more change in my behaviors and thoughts by reprogramming my subconscious mind than anything I've ever worked with. And even further of furthermores, it's been a total time warp. It's been the quickest and fastest way I've seen change and transformation in my life. I literally could not say enough about including the subconscious mind in growth. It's long lasting change and it's effective immediately. This is why I made that free meditation to go along with the series. There's a link for that in the description. It's to reprogram your subconscious mind through repetition of empowering thought patterns. It reinforces everything I've been talking about in this whole series in just 15 minutes without using even one single negative word. So you can rest assured that every word your mind will pick up on is going to be uplifting. If you haven't downloaded that, you are missing out not to. It's not too late to start listening to it. Plus, after listening to that for a few days, if you come back and re-listen to these videos, you'll pick up on even more clues of growth and transformation because your mind will be familiar with those words. If nothing else, at least make your own recording and make sure to follow the affirmation advice in video number 2 so that you don't get any negative words in there. Repetition impresses the subconscious mind with new belief systems. So you want to make sure that those systems and programming are empowering so that it becomes natural and automatic to live from such a positive stance. Through practice and repetition, you will maintain an empowering state of mind which opens you up to limitless possibilities and also to your own internal power you may not have known you even had. That's why I've said all along to listen to these videos multiple times, because of the repetition. It's also not too late to go back and re-listen to the other 4 videos. You could literally listen to this entire program in a little over an hour. And this is what I'm talking about with time warping. All you have to do is dedicate an hour a day, or even less, to start to see massive shifts. Quickly, too. Also, our brain loves what is familiar. We return to the familiar again and again. Using subconscious reprogramming repetition, we make what we desire to be familiar actually familiar. It may not be familiar yet, but it will be in a very quick amount of time. At first, when it's unfamiliar, we encounter the cognitive dissonance, and this discomfort is why it's so important to employ self-control until it does become familiar, because we're comfortable in what's familiar, and we're uncomfortable in what's unfamiliar. So at first, it's going to be uncomfortable and unfamiliar, but then it starts to get familiar and comfortable, and actually once it's familiar, if you are not living up to what is newly familiar for you, that's when you start to feel uncomfortable on the other side. So you really want to allow things to happen naturally and not force them so that you're following your subconscious mind into these new thought patterns. So once you get the subconscious mind involved and on track with where you want to be, the easy ease really starts to kick in. You'll start embodying not only an empowering state of mind, but also an empowering state of being, identifying with empowerment in every way, seeing yourself and your reality from an empowering stance. All of these things bubbling up and gushing over into more and more momentum. Empowerment begins in different places for all of us. We like to think we'll wake up next week and be empowered. But next week's empowerment may just look like getting out of bed feeling slightly different. Or maybe it's a new sense of weak hope. It's not too strong, but hope nonetheless. Or maybe it's finally feeling some of those feelings you've been tucking away and having a breakdown. Sure, from the outside, a breakdown looks pathetic. But if that's what you need, you are not alone. And even a breakdown can be interpreted as empowering as well. I've been there. We each are processing life in the way that makes the most sense to us at the time. So eventually you just have to say, I don't care what I look like. I don't care what they think of me. I know what's good for me, and I only care what I think about myself. You work with what you've got. Eventually, the flow of momentum carries what you've worked with downstream, and you naturally are led to the next level of empowerment on your specific and unique journey. Not everyone's empowerment looks the same. Where you are is where you are. Accept it and work with it. Work with what you've got and don't worry about the momentum. Let it take care of itself because believe me, it will. We are always growing. We never arrive. We never arrive. One last thing. Love yourself. Loving yourself is a whole nother topic, but I feel like it's very important to mention briefly. Loving ourselves is the starting point for most of us. If you don't love yourself, you will not be able to accept the love others offer you or be able to truly love another. Not to mention, if God is love, then one who does not fully love themselves is not able to feel the love of the divine all in all. But at the same time, loving oneself actually leads to a connection and a relationship with the source of love, much quicker than any religion or philosophy. If there's one thing to take away from this entire series, it is to seek to learn to love yourself. Even though I hardly talked about it, this really is the key to every other tool and foundational building block. In ending, I want to remind you that all of these concepts expand endlessly in all directions. They all connect back to one another. So it's very important for you to follow a hunch that you may have to look further into something that intrigued you or resonated with you. So also remember the three pieces of the foundation are belief in the possibility of your desired outcome, perseverance and the ability to push through and never give up, and also to address and include the subconscious mind. And remember, free stuff. There's a link to the first 4 videos in the description if you missed them, along with a link to all the free content I'm giving away to go with this series, which includes an art print download of this painting, Congruent Vibrations, and a subconscious reprogramming meditation, which I just talked about. And I encourage you to listen to that every day for 30 days. And so also you can keep listening to that as long as you want. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for allowing me to show up in life this way. I've never done something like this before, and I'm super excited. I don't know, I've really been filled up making these videos and seeing how people are responding to them, so thank you all for being here. I highly encourage you to share them with anybody you think could benefit, so please just share, share, share. I want to get this stuff out so that other people can benefit. It's been a long journey for me to overcome anxiety, and I think that all these tools could be really helpful for like everyone. So, yeah, please share and please get in touch. Let me know how this series has impacted you so that I have some more motivation and momentum to put out the next stuff. Alrighty. Thank you, 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 thank you. Bye, 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 bye.